John D. Rockefeller wasn't merely a symbol of wealth, he was a force of nature. The ruthless titan who reshaped the oil industry, built an empire, and changed America forever. But behind that colossal success, a man driven by something darker. His ambition knew no bounds. And the path he took to get to the top, it wasn't pretty. In fact, it was filled with secrets, manipulation, and a legacy that would haunt him for generations. Stick with me as we dive deep into the story of the King of Oil, uncovering the rise, the fall, and the shocking truths nobody saw coming. Imagine it's 1839, in a small, dusty town in New York. A boy named John D. Rockefeller is born to a family that barely scrapes by. His father, a notorious con artist who went by the name Devil Bill, wasn't your typical father. This man wasn't around much, always off on some scheme or another, leaving his family to fend for themselves. When he did come home, he'd show up with extravagant gifts, as if to make up for his absence. But those gifts didn't change the reality of the harsh life they led. John's mother, a devout Baptist, worked tirelessly to support the family. And through all the struggle, she taught him two things: hard work and faith. By the age of 10, John had already begun hustling, raising turkeys and selling them for a profit. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Even at such a young age, he had a knack for making things work. But what happened next? Nobody could have predicted the impact that humble beginning would have. John's life wasn't going to be dictated by the hand he was dealt. No, he wasn't going to be just another man who grew up poor and stayed poor. By 13, he'd already grown tired of scraping by. He realized that if he wanted to escape the cycle of poverty, he needed to be more than just a worker. He needed to build something of his own. So he began working side jobs, doing bookkeeping, running errands, anything to earn a little more. The fire inside him started burning brighter. He knew that he wasn't meant to live a life of struggle. The question wasn't if he would escape, but when. And soon enough, the answer would come. But would he survive the journey ahead? Would the hunger for success devour him before he could ever taste it? At 16, John made the bold decision to leave school behind and step into the real world. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, but there was something more than just physical labor that drew him in. His first job, as an accountant, making only $50 a year. It wasn't glamorous, but it was his first taste of independence. Holding that check, something inside him clicked. This wasn't just about making ends meet. No, he wasn't satisfied with this small paycheck. In his mind, this was the first step towards something bigger, something much bigger. He began to repeat to himself, "I am bound to be rich." But it wasn't just about the money. It was about proving everyone wrong. It was about showing the world that the boy from a broken home could rise above it all. He wasn't just another cog in the machine. He was destined for greatness. By the age of 18, Rockefeller had already caught the entrepreneurial bug. Partnering with Morris Clark, he ventured into the produce business, buying and selling goods. It wasn't fancy, but it was his. This small business taught him more about the game than any classroom could. What happened next, though, would change the game forever. His next move was more dangerous than anything he'd ever done before. It's 1859. Pennsylvania is in the midst of the oil boom, and John D. Rockefeller's eyes widen as he sees opportunity. The world is buzzing with the potential of this newfound black gold, and everyone's rushing to cash in. But Rockefeller isn't like the others. He doesn't want a slice of the pie. He wants to own the bakery. Partnering with Samuel Andrews, an innovative oil refiner, Rockefeller sets up his first refinery. It starts slow, but he's methodical. He isn't here to just play in the market. He wants to control it. In 1870, he found Standard Oil. But it doesn't take long for Rockefeller to realize that controlling the refineries is only part of the game. He's thinking bigger. He wants to control the entire supply chain, from the drilling to the refining to the shipping. That's when he starts making moves to buy up competitors. The question is, how far would he go to crush his enemies? How far was he willing to push it? His tactics were ruthless. He used intimidation, secret deals, and underhanded tricks to undermine anyone who stood in his way. As his empire grew, so did his control. By 1873, Rockefeller had more than 90% of the U.S. oil refining market. But that's not where it ended. He had his sights set on something even bigger, and soon enough, the world would witness the creation of a monopoly like never before. But what would happen when the world finally caught on? Would Rockefeller's iron grip slip, or would he reign supreme forever? The public backlash was growing. People were starting to see the monster for what it was. The tactics were too ruthless. The competition was being suffocated. The whispers of corruption grew louder, and the cracks in the empire began to show. Soon enough, they would demand justice. But the real question was, could anyone stop him? Could the system that had allowed him to thrive finally break him? By the time John D. Rockefeller's empire reached its peak, the world was fed up. Journalists, most notably Ida Tarbell, began exposing his ruthless methods. The public was no longer in the dark. They knew about the bribery, the manipulation, the dirty deals. The pressure was mounting, and the government couldn't ignore it anymore. In 1911, the U.S. government filed an antitrust lawsuit against Standard Oil. The charges were serious: monopolistic practices, price fixing, and attempts to eliminate all competition. It was a battle that would define Rockefeller's legacy. The trial was a landmark moment. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled that Standard Oil had to be broken up into 34 separate companies. But in an ironic twist, this ruling didn't break Rockefeller, it made him richer. When Standard Oil split, he received stock in all the new companies, and their value skyrocketed. The world's first billionaire, born from the ashes of his empire. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had built his fortune through manipulation and power, and now that empire had crumbled, only to give him even more wealth. By the time Rockefeller's empire was shattered, his focus had shifted. He wasn't just about accumulating wealth anymore, had grown obsessed with something more meaningful: giving it away. He believed his fortune wasn't just his. It was a gift from God, and it was his duty to use it for the betterment of society. But was this shift real? Or was it just another calculated move to reshape his legacy? He gave away hundreds of millions of dollars, funding hospitals, schools, and scientific research. In 1913, he founded the Rockefeller Foundation, which funded major advancements in medical science, including vaccines for malaria and hookworm. His charitable efforts also helped create institutions like the University of Chicago. But here's the twist. Could his philanthropy erase the scars of his ruthless rise to the top? Could his giving back make up for the empire he built through blood, sweat, and manipulation? Or would his past sins forever haunt him? What do you think? Was Rockefeller a genius businessman or just another ruthless tycoon? Was his rise a story of vision and grit, or a tale of deception and ruthlessness? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most captivating figures. See you next time.